The stars over the capital world of the Veyari shone cold and silent. For centuries, their people had believed the galaxy was safe, that the long wars of the past were over, and that diplomacy was the way forward. But now those same stars carried shadows. Fleet after fleet of the Kreth moved across them, leaving fire and broken worlds in their path. Chancellor Ilian stood inside the Grand Hall of Voices, staring at the holographic map that showed the spread of destruction. Red marks lit up system after system, each one a colony world that had fallen within days. The Kreth did not bargain. They did not negotiate. They conquered. And if they could not enslave, they destroyed. The chamber was filled with council members from many worlds, scaled Atri, feathered Ura, crystalline Ferus, and more. Their voices rose in panic, echoing across the marble chamber. "We cannot stand against them any longer." One shouted, "Our fleets are gone." Another cried,
"They will reach this world within a cycle."
Chancellor Ilian raised his hand and the chamber quieted. His voice was heavy with exhaustion. "We have only one option left. We must send a call for aid. Someone somewhere must answer." "But who?" asked General Sarek of the Atri. His scales flickered dull blue, the color of despair. "The Kreth have crushed every rival. The old alliances are dead. No power remains strong enough to fight them." Ilian turned back to the map, his long fingers trembling slightly. "Then perhaps a new one must rise. We will send the signal into the void, to anyone who will hear, even if they are strangers." Silence followed. Every species in that hall knew what it meant. To call blindly was to risk everything. Pirates could answer. Mercenaries could exploit them. Or worse, no one might answer at all. But in the end, what choice remained? The beacon was prepared. The signal was not grand. It was simple, desperate, and clear. "This is the coalition of free worlds. We face extinction at the hands of the Kreth Empire. We beg for aid. Whoever hears this, we ask for your strength. Without it, we will fall." The words were transmitted into the void of space, amplified by the most powerful arrays left in the coalition's possession. For days afterward, the message repeated, carried on every frequency they could reach. And then, they waited. Time stretched into painful silence. Weeks passed and nothing returned. The Kreth advanced, destroying another 2 systems. Refugees filled the capital world until its streets overflowed. Families huddled together in fear. Soldiers who once marched proudly now stood with downcast eyes, knowing their weapons could not stop what was coming. Inside the council chamber, hope was fading. "They will not come," whispered Elder Vela of the Ura, her feathers dimmed to gray. "We are alone." Ilian wanted to deny it, but the truth was plain. Their signal had crossed the stars, but no answer had come. Until one day a sound echoed through the chamber, an alert tone. At first no one noticed, but then the holographic screens lit up. "Incoming transmission," cried a technician, his crystalline body glowing with excitement. "Unknown origin." The council leapt to their feet. Voices overlapped in shock. "Who is it? Which species? Where are they from?" The technician adjusted the filters and the transmission cleared. A face appeared on the display, smooth-skinned, with eyes that burned with focus and no scales, feathers, or crystals. A strange species none of them had ever seen. The voice that followed was calm, steady, and direct. "This is Captain Reyes of the United Earth Fleet. We have received your signal." The council chamber fell silent. "Earth?" whispered General Sarek. "What world is that? I have never heard the name." "They are unknown to us," murmured Elder Vela. "A minor people, perhaps." But Ilian's heart raced. Unknown or not, they had answered. That alone was a spark of hope. Captain Reyes continued, his voice carrying across the chamber. "We know of the Kreth. Your message reached us through relay signals, though we are far from your territory. Yet we understand what you ask. You call for aid. You will have it." Gasps filled the room. The aliens exchanged looks of shock and disbelief. Aid so easily promised? Who were these beings to speak so boldly? Ilian leaned forward, his voice breaking slightly. You would help us, even though we are strangers?" The human captain nodded once. "We have never faced the Kreth directly, but we know what it means when an empire spreads through conquest. We cannot ignore such a call. Humanity does not turn away when the galaxy cries for help." The chamber filled with whispers. Some were hopeful, some were doubtful. "They cannot be serious," muttered one council member. "A single world cannot stand against the Kreth." Perhaps they seek to profit from our desperation. But Reyes seemed to sense their fear. He spoke again, stronger this time. We do not come for conquest. We do not come for tribute. We come because it is right. You asked for aid. You will receive it, not in words but in ships. The transmission ended and the hologram went dark. For a long moment, no one moved. The chamber was filled with silence, heavier than before. Finally, General Sarek broke it. They are mad. A single world unknown and untested against the Kreth? It is impossible. Elder Vela tilted her head, feathers shifting faintly. And yet, they answered, when no one else did. That is not nothing. Chancellor Ilian stood tall. His voice carried across the chamber with renewed strength. Perhaps they are few, perhaps they are untested, but when the galaxy turned its face away, they alone stepped forward. If this is what hope looks like, then I will take it. Let the humans come, the council murmured among themselves. Doubt remained, but so did a fragile spark of belief. For the first time in months, the coalition had something beyond fear to cling to. Beyond their world in the cold void of space, the first human fleet was already on its way. In the refugee camps of the capital city, rumors spread like fire. Whispers of strange beings from a death world. Humans who had heard the coalition's cry and chosen to answer. Mothers told their children that help was coming. Soldiers whispered it in their barracks. Even the tired and broken lifted their eyes to the stars with the faintest glimmer of hope. No one yet knew what humanity truly was. No one understood what it meant for a death world species to enter the war. But they would learn, because when the galaxy begged for aid, it would not receive promises or empty words. It would receive a human fleet and nothing would ever be the same. The capital world of the coalition was a planet drowning in fear. Refugee ships filled its skies, docking at every station and landing bay. Streets were packed with the displaced, families who had fled burning colonies, soldiers who had lost every battle, and leaders who no longer knew how to protect their people. Every day, new reports arrived of Kreth fleets sweeping across the stars. The enemy moved like a storm, never slowing, never sparing. Entire cities were silenced overnight. The coalition had tried to fight back, but their fleets were shattered. Their armies were scattered, and then came the humans. The first signs of their approach were strange signals in the outer system, communications that seemed too simple, too blunt. Compared to the layered transmissions most species used, coalition technicians frowned at the odd codes and plain words. Is this truly their language? Asked one Ura officer, his feathers puffing in confusion. There are no harmonics, no scent markers, no energy flare patterns, just sound and symbols. It is human, replied a technician who had studied the first message. They call it English. Crude but efficient. They say everything directly. Council members gathered once more in the Grand Hall of Voices. Chancellor Ilian sat at the head, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes burning with hope. Report, how many ships are coming? The answer was met with hesitation. Not many, admitted the crystalline technician. We count perhaps 40 warships. Small ones by our standards. The chamber erupted in outrage. 40? Against the Kreth Armada? Shouted General Sarek. This is not aid, it is madness. They are Deathworlders, murmured Elder Vela, her feathers trembling faintly. Perhaps their strength is not in numbers, but doubt remained heavy in the chamber. What could 40 ships do against hundreds? 2 days later, the humans arrived. The skies of the coalition capital filled with streaks of light as the fleet decelerated from faster-than-light travel. They emerged in disciplined formation, every ship aligned as though part of a single thought. Coalition citizens gathered in the plazas and spaceports to watch the arrival. Massive screens displayed the view from orbit, sleek vessels of metal and steel painted in dull colors, without the glowing crystal arrays or elegant organic curves that coalition ships were known for. To many, they looked plain. To some, even primitive. Are these really warships? A refugee whispered, clutching his child. They are smaller than our own carriers, another muttered. Perhaps they are scouts, said a soldier. But when the human flagship opened a channel, doubt turned into curiosity. The image of Captain Reyes appeared once more on the screens. His face was calm, but his eyes held the fire of command. This is the United Earth Fleet, he announced. We come in answer to your call. To the people of the coalition, you are not alone. Across the capital, silence fell. Then murmurs spread. The message was simple, direct. Yet something in the way it was spoken made hearts stir. In the council chamber, Ilian bowed his head with respect. Captain Reyes, we welcome you. Though your fleet is small, your courage is greater than all our words. Reyes nodded once. We are not here for words. We are here to fight. The coalition generals were doubtful. They invited the human commanders to the War Council to discuss strategy. Their holographic maps showed the positions of Kreth fleets, the destroyed colonies, and the path of invasion. General Sarek wasted no time. You see the truth, Captain. Your ships are few. The Kreth will outnumber you 10-1 in every battle. It is impossible. Reyes studied the map silently, his hand resting on the table. Finally, he looked up. General, if humanity only fought battles we were certain to win, we would not exist today. We come from a world that tries to kill us every day. Storms, predators, sickness, fire, ice. We learned long ago that survival is not about easy battles. It is about refusing to surrender. The council stared in silence. Another human officer, Admiral Chen, leaned forward. Your fleets fought the Kreth in open space, trying to match their numbers. That is why you lost. We will not fight that way. We will strike where they do not expect. Cut their supply lines and bleed them piece by piece. 1,000 small wounds can kill a giant. The alien generals exchanged glances. Such tactics seemed reckless, even suicidal. Yet there was a confidence in the humans' voices that was difficult to ignore. Chancellor Ilian spoke at last. Then show us. Show us how humans fight. The first battle came sooner than expected. A Kreth raiding fleet entered the system, hunting refugee convoys. Coalition defenses scrambled, but their ships were too slow, too damaged from earlier losses. Fear spread across the capital. If the Kreth reached the planet, the slaughter would be immense. But the humans moved first. 40 ships, smaller than the Kreth cruisers, launched into the void. They flew in tight formation, every vessel covering the others. Where coalition ships scattered and hesitated, the humans moved like predators, swift and sharp. From the surface, millions watched the battle unfold on giant screens. They saw the Kreth fleet approach, massive and terrible, glowing with deadly power. They saw the humans, tiny in comparison, rush forward without hesitation. The clash was sudden and brutal. Human ships darted between the Kreth, targeting engines and weak points instead of trying to destroy ships outright. Explosions lit the sky as Kreth vessels spun out of control, colliding with one another. Boarding pods launched and human soldiers fought inside the enemy hulls with terrifying precision. Coalition citizens gasped as they watched humans fight up close. These were no fragile beings. They moved with speed and ferocity, striking with tools and weapons the coalition had never seen. They did not retreat. They did not falter. Within hours, the Kreth fleet broke. Ships scattered, retreating into the darkness. The humans had won. In the council chamber, silence reigned once more. But this time it was not despair. It was awe. General Sarek stood frozen, his scales glowing bright in disbelief. Impossible! 40 ships against a fleet 3 times its size. Elder Vela's feathers flared with new color. They fight as though they were born for war. Chancellor Ilian closed his eyes, relief washing over him. They fight as though the galaxy itself has awakened. News of the victory spread across the capital like wildfire. Refugees lifted their heads with hope. Children cheered in the streets. Soldiers stood straighter in their barracks. For the first time in years, the Kreth had been defeated, but the humans did not celebrate. While coalition citizens rejoiced, the United Earth Fleet prepared for the next strike. Captain Reyes addressed the council once more. His voice was steady, his eyes cold with determination. This was only the beginning. The Kreth will return, stronger than before. But now they know humanity has arrived. And we do not run, we fight. On the coalition capital, millions stared at the stars with new hope. The humans had come, not with endless fleets, not with grand speeches, but with fire and courage. The Kreth had expected another easy conquest. Instead, they had found humanity, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The coalition capital world no longer felt as hopeless as before. The victory of the humans had lit a fire in every heart. Refugees who once whispered only in fear now spoke with cautious hope. Soldiers who once believed the Kreth were unstoppable now trained harder, imagining that perhaps the enemy could be beaten. But the humans themselves were not celebrating. In their ships above the capital, The United Earth Fleet worked with quiet focus. Repairs were already underway, new supply lines mapped, and battle reports studied in detail. To the humans, one victory was only a step in a long war. The coalition leaders did not yet understand this. To them, the humans' victory felt like a miracle. But soon they would learn the full weight of what it meant to fight like a Deathworlder. The Kreth had not been defeated completely. Their fleet had only retreated, wounded and humiliated. But humiliation for the Kreth was not the end. It was the beginning of vengeance. Only weeks later, the sky over a nearby colony burned again. A Kreth war armada descended on the planet of Seralis, a coalition farming world filled with refugees. The humans responded immediately. Chancellor Ilian watched the reports come in from the War Council chamber. His long hands gripped the table as the holographic map filled with red. "They will destroy everything," whispered Elder Vela. "That colony cannot withstand such numbers." General Sarek turned to the humans. His scales flickered dark with anxiety. "Captain Reyes, you must see reason. They outnumber you 5-1. You cannot face them directly." Reyes met his gaze calmly. "We will not face them directly." The humans launched a plan unlike any the coalition had ever seen. Instead of gathering all ships for a grand defense, the fleet split into small strike groups. They did not fight in formation like the coalition armies had done. They scattered across the system, hiding in asteroid belts, drifting in shadow, waiting for the Kreth to expose themselves. The coalition commanders were horrified. "This is madness," Sarek shouted. "They will be torn apart, one group at a time." But Ilian said nothing. Deep inside, he remembered Reyes's earlier words. "We do not fight battles we are certain to win. We fight the battles that must be fought." The battle began with silence. Kreth ships entered orbit around Seralis, confident in their numbers. They launched bombardments toward the surface, fire raining down on the farming settlements. Refugees screamed as the ground shook, and then the humans struck. From the asteroid belt, a small group of destroyers ignited their engines, charging straight at the Kreth supply vessels. Missiles streaked through space, striking fuel ships and carriers. Explosions tore across the enemy's rear lines. Before the Kreth could react, another group of human frigates emerged from behind the planet, targeting enemy command ships. Boarding pods slammed into Kreth hulls, and human soldiers poured inside, fighting hand-to-hand in corridors filled with smoke and fire. The Kreth had expected an orderly battle. Instead, they were ambushed from every side. On the surface of Seralis, refugees huddled in shelters. Through the cracks of the sky above, they saw flashes of fire, streaks of light as ships clashed. The ground shook not with bombardments now, but with the echoes of explosions high above. A child tugged at her mother's arm. "Are they coming for us?" The mother held her close. "No, my love. They are fighting for us. The humans are here." In the council chamber, the holographic map lit up with reports. Coalition commanders stared in disbelief as Kreth ships fell one after another. "This cannot be," shouted General Sarek. "They fight without order, without unity." "How are they winning?" Admiral Chen, one of the human officers, answered calmly. "You see chaos. We see opportunity. Each of our groups knows its task. We are not bound to rigid lines. When the enemy moves, we move faster." The aliens did not understand. To them, war was about strength and structure, about large fleets colliding in predictable patterns. But to humans, war was something else, a storm of risk, courage, and will. Inside one Kreth battleship, the fight raged through narrow halls. Human Marines moved with a discipline that shocked even their enemies. They were smaller and weaker than the Kreth in body, but their movements were relentless. Where the Kreth sought domination, the humans fought with purpose. One soldier, Sergeant Mason, led his squad through a corridor filled with smoke. His voice was steady as he gave orders. "Cover the corner. Push forward. Don't stop until we reach the core." The Kreth roared and charged, but the humans did not retreat. They used everything: grenades, tools, even the environment itself. A single door became a trap. A broken pipe became a weapon. Hours later, the battleship's lights flickered and died. Human Marines emerged into space once more, their helmets reflecting the burning wreck behind them. By the end of the battle, the impossible had happened. Outnumbered 5-1, the United Earth Fleet had driven the Kreth into retreat again. The farming world of Seralis was scarred, but alive. Refugees wept as they stepped from shelters staring at the sky. For the first time, the Kreth had been defeated not once but twice. The coalition leaders were stunned. General Sarek could only mutter in disbelief. They fight as if they fear nothing, as if death itself cannot stop them. Chancellor Ilian looked at him quietly. Perhaps that is what it means to be from a death world, to live with danger so long that fear no longer rules you. But the humans did not see themselves as invincible. In their fleet, the cost of victory was heavy. Ships were damaged, soldiers were lost. The humans mourned their dead with quiet dignity. Captain Reyes addressed his officers in the flagship. His voice was calm, but his eyes were heavy. We have shown the coalition what we can do. But this war will not end quickly. The Kreth will adapt. They will come in greater numbers. We must be ready. The officers nodded. No one spoke of retreat. No one spoke of surrender. In the following days, the coalition citizens whispered stories of the humans. They spoke of small ships defeating massive fleets, of soldiers who fought like fire itself, of beings who turned hopeless battles into victories. The galaxy had always believed strength came from size, from numbers, from power. But the humans were proving something different. Strength, true strength, came from will, and the will of humanity was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Kreth, furious at their defeats, began preparing larger forces. They could not ignore the humans now. What had once been a simple conquest had become something new, a war they might not easily win. In their dark halls, Kreth commanders roared in anger. Who are these humans? How dare they stand against us? But no matter how loud their anger grew, the truth could not be changed. The galaxy had begged for aid, and it had received something far more dangerous. It had received humanity. The coalition capital world had changed. Its skies no longer carried the heavy tension of hopelessness. Refugees who had spent weeks hiding in shelters now walked among streets filled with cautious celebration. Children pointed to the stars and whispered stories of humans who could fight an empire and win. Yet not all eyes looked to the sky with hope. In the council chamber, Chancellor Ilian and the coalition leaders faced a more difficult reality. The humans had proven their strength, but their victories had come at a cost. Captain Reyes convened the War Council aboard the flagship Resolute. The council room hummed with quiet energy. Holographic maps displayed the recent battles, red markers for Kreth ships destroyed, green for human losses. Reyes gestured toward the map. Our forces have performed well, but do not be misled. Every victory comes with sacrifice. Ships lost, soldiers lost. Every success has a price. The coalition generals shifted uneasily. General Sarek's scales flickered with discomfort. Price, your fleet is small. How many have you lost? Reyes did not flinch. Enough, we mourn each loss. But humanity does not shrink from danger. Every soldier knows the risk, every pilot knows the cost. They fight not because it is safe, but because it is necessary. In the aftermath of the latest battle, the human losses were visible. Ships burned in orbit, hulls torn open by Kreth weapons. Inside, medics worked tirelessly to save the injured, and soldiers carried the dead with solemn care. No music, no speeches, only quiet respect. Lieutenant Harris knelt beside a fallen comrade. He was good at what he did, Harris said softly. He wanted to protect the colony. He would have wanted us to keep fighting. Reyes placed a hand on his shoulder. Then we honor him by continuing, not by despairing. The humans' dedication stunned the coalition leaders. They had expected caution, hesitation, even fear, but saw none. Back on the surface of the coalition worlds, the human presence also carried a cultural shock. Soldiers and civilians alike were unaccustomed to the way humans moved, spoke, and acted. They were loud at times, blunt and fearless. But it was not arrogance. It was confidence born from survival. The Atri General, Sarek, watched as human Marines organized refugee camps and trained local militias. Their methods were unorthodox but effective. Civilians who had never held weapons learned quickly under their guidance. They are relentless, muttered Sarek, and they are teaching our people, that is, unsettling. Elder Vela, observing quietly, added, It is frightening because it works. The humans do not wait for perfection. They adapt, they endure, they push forward. The Kreth did not ignore these human victories. Reports of their losses reached the Empire, and the command grew furious. Plans that had once counted on fear now faced defiance. The Kreth commanders gathered fleets larger than any the humans had yet encountered. "We will crush them," roared a Kreth admiral in the command hall. "These humans think they can challenge the Empire? They will learn the cost of defiance." But even as the Kreth prepared their assault, the humans did not hesitate. They knew the battle ahead would be even harsher than before. They knew more lives would be lost, and yet they moved forward. The next engagement came at the moon of Daryon, a key supply hub for coalition forces. Intelligence indicated a Kreth fleet moving to capture it. Coalition officials urged caution. 40 human ships, they reminded Reyes, could not face the full force of the Kreth without losing most of their fleet. Reyes listened, nodding. "We know the risk. But if we allow Daryon to fall, the war will move faster, and countless civilians will die. Sometimes the price of action is higher than the price of inaction." The council was silent. For a moment, they realized that the humans were not simply soldiers. They were a new kind of force in the galaxy, willing to risk everything because it was necessary. The battle over Daryon was unlike any previous engagement. Humans split into small strike teams approaching the Kreth fleet from multiple angles. They avoided the enemy's strongest weapons and exploited every weakness in formation. Explosions filled space, illuminating the moon below. Coalition observers watched from orbit, unaccustomed to this style of warfare. Unlike their own fleets, which moved slowly and cautiously, humans struck like storms, unpredictable and precise. But the cost was severe. Several human ships were destroyed. Boarding operations left casualties among Marines. Yet even with losses, the humans pressed forward. On the moon's surface, coalition civilians and soldiers witnessed an incredible sight. Human soldiers rescuing trapped colonists amidst the chaos. They moved with speed and courage, carrying those who could not escape under fire. The Kreth could not predict them, could not stop them. By nightfall, the Kreth fleet had retreated. Daryon remained in coalition hands. But when the humans returned to orbit, the tally of losses weighed heavily. In the council chamber of the coalition capital, Ilian spoke quietly to his generals. "They win, yes, but at what cost? They risk everything every time." General Sarek's jaw was tight. "They fight like demons. Every time they strike, they lose comrades." "How can they continue?" Elder Vela added softly. "Because their spirit is stronger than their fear. They understand that sacrifice is the price of survival. They pay willingly and they endure." Ilian sighed. "We have called for aid and we received it. But I fear we have not understood what it truly means." On board the human flagship, Captain Reyes addressed his officers once more. His face was lined from the battles, his eyes tired but focused. "Every life lost is a tragedy," he said, "but every life saved is a victory. We cannot shield ourselves from death and we cannot shrink from our duty. Humanity has always survived because we do not wait for perfect conditions. We act and we endure." Admiral Chen, standing beside him, nodded. "Each battle will cost more, but the Kreth will learn, slowly, painfully, that humans do not surrender." Reyes placed a hand on the console, gazing out at the stars. "This is only the beginning. The galaxy will see the price of defiance, and they will remember it." Back on the coalition world, civilians and soldiers alike began to understand the humans in new ways. They were not simply allies. They were teachers of resilience, of courage, and of relentless action. Stories began to spread of human sacrifice, pilots who stayed behind to cover evacuations, soldiers who held out in impossible conditions, engineers who risked everything to repair ships under fire. For the coalition, the victories were inspiring. But for the humans, these losses were simply part of the path forward. They did not glorify death. They honored it quietly and pressed on. The Kreth, meanwhile, could not ignore this new threat. Their reports spoke of humans who fought against impossible odds and survived. Their arrogance was challenged. Their empire, used to conquest without resistance, now faced a species that refused to yield. Admiral Croth, a Kreth commander, bellowed to his officers in the war hall. "These humans, they are not like the others. They do not fear death. They do not yield. We must destroy them or we will lose our place in the galaxy." But for the humans, every threat was simply another opportunity to prove their resilience. They would not flee. They would not beg. They would fight and they would endure. As the coalition leaders watched the humans prepare for the next engagement, they finally understood a harsh truth. Humanity was not just a fleet. It was a force of will, a new type of power the galaxy had never known. And that power came at a price. Every battle would cost lives. Every victory would demand sacrifice, but the humans had chosen to pay it willingly. Chancellor Ilian closed his eyes and whispered to himself. They came when no one else would. And now we see, they pay the price so that the galaxy might live. For the coalition, hope had returned, but it was tempered by understanding. The price of defiance was high, and yet it was worth every life. The coalition capital world glimmered under twin suns as dawn broke across its horizon. The city, once filled with despair and fear, now bustled with a renewed sense of purpose. Markets reopened, schools for refugee children resumed, and streets once empty from panic were crowded with life. Everywhere the story of humans, striking, fearless, unyielding, was told. But for the humans themselves, the war had not ended. Battles continued, fleets moved, and plans for the future were drawn. They were not heroes seeking glory. They were survivors acting with precision, courage, and relentless determination. Captain Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, gazing at the stars. His officers worked quietly, each focused on their task. Reports of Kreth movements flashed across holographic screens, and new battle plans were being drawn. Admiral Chen approached him. Captain, intelligence reports indicate that the Kreth are regrouping. They have reinforced 3 fleets and are moving toward coalition systems in unison. They will strike harder next time. Reyes nodded slowly. Let them come. The galaxy has already seen what we do. They may think fear can stop us, but they will learn that humanity never yields. The words were calm, but they carried weight. Humans did not need to shout to inspire courage. They did it with action. Back on the coalition worlds, leaders watched the humans with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Chancellor Ilian spoke to the council as new reports of human victories arrived. They are not just soldiers, he said. They are a new force in the galaxy. They fight as if the entire universe depends on them, and perhaps it does. General Sarek, still struggling to comprehend, added, They sacrifice what we cannot. Their losses are great, yet they continue. Their courage, it is like nothing we have ever known. Elder Vela, feathers now glowing with renewed color, spoke softly. The galaxy will remember them, not just for their victories, but for their will. That is what makes them different. That is what makes them human. The Kreth, enraged by repeated defeats, began a massive assault on the Coalition's frontier systems. Millions of Coalition citizens feared annihilation. Refugee worlds braced for devastation. The Kreth believed that this time they could crush the humans and break the Coalition for good. But the humans had anticipated such an attack. Small fleets positioned themselves in unexpected locations, ready to ambush. Supply lines were hidden, and defensive networks were strengthened. The humans had learned the patterns of the Kreth, and now they would turn those patterns against them. Captain Reyes addressed his officers before the engagement. This is the moment. They will come with fury, expecting to intimidate. They will not understand our methods. Every system we defend, every ship we save, every life we protect, it builds a fire. And that fire is our legacy, Admiral Chen added. We fight not for conquest, not for reward. We fight because if we do not, no one else will. The officers nodded, understanding the weight of their task. They did not fear death. They feared failing those who could not defend themselves. The battle began in the deep reaches of space. Kreth fleets advanced, confident and merciless. Their weapons fired in synchronized volleys, and massive cruisers moved to encircle key Coalition systems. From the perspective of Coalition observers, the humans appeared hopelessly outnumbered. Yet the United Earth Fleet moved with precision. Destroyers darted between enemy fire, frigates struck from hidden angles, and boarding parties assaulted command vessels. Every movement was coordinated, unpredictable, and deadly. The Kreth struggled to adapt. Every plan they had relied on for generations now failed against humans who were flexible, courageous, and relentless. Every failed maneuver cost the Kreth dearly. By the end of the first day, the Kreth had suffered unprecedented losses. Ships burned, cruisers exploded, and retreat became the only option. Humanity had turned what seemed impossible into victory once more. On the surface of Coalition worlds, citizens watched the battles unfold on massive screens. Children cheered, Parents held hands and soldiers saluted the skies. Humans had done more than fight. They had inspired. "I never thought we would see this," whispered a Ura engineer, eyes wide. "They fight like legends." "I think," replied a colleague, "we will tell stories of this for generations. The humans, they are different. They are unstoppable in ways we cannot fully understand. Yet the humans themselves remained grounded. For every victory, there was reflection, mourning, and preparation. In the human fleet, Captain Reyes walked among the wounded, offering words of comfort and guidance. He did not glorify death. He honored it quietly and ensured the living were ready for the battles ahead. A young lieutenant approached him. "Captain, the coalition leaders speak of our bravery. They call us heroes." Reyes shook his head. "We are not heroes. We are humans. We survive, we endure, and we fight. That is enough. Everything else, the stories, the legends, they will come later. Our duty is here now for those who cannot fight for themselves." The lieutenant nodded, understanding the truth. Humanity's power was not in weapons or numbers. It was in courage, in will, in refusal to yield. The Kreth, humiliated by repeated defeats, withdrew for the moment, but their presence still haunted the outer systems. The coalition could rebuild, fortify, and prepare, but they understood that the humans had changed the galaxy. Fear alone would no longer rule. Even alien civilizations who had remained neutral or distant began sending cautious messages of support. The humans had demonstrated that even a small, determined force could turn the tide against the galaxy's most feared empire. Chancellor Ilian spoke to his council, his voice filled with quiet pride. "We begged for aid and we received something greater than we could imagine. These humans, they are not simply our allies. They are a new force of hope, a living flame in the darkness." General Sarek nodded slowly. "And that flame will not be extinguished," Elder Vela added softly. "It will grow, spreading across the stars. Where humans fight, hope will follow. That is their legacy." The human fleet moved on, continuing to defend coalition worlds and strike against Kreth forces. Their victories were precise, their tactics unpredictable, and their courage unmatched. Every battle they fought, every system they protected, became part of their growing legend. On every planet they saved, people whispered stories of humans who stood where no one else would, who risked everything to protect strangers, who refused to yield against impossible odds. The galaxy began to see that humans were not simply survivors, they were catalysts, agents of change in a universe that often believed in despair. As the sun set on the coalition capital, Captain Reyes stood once more on the bridge of the Resolute. The stars stretched infinitely ahead, some still carrying the red glow of Kreth fleets in retreat. Admiral Chen approached. "Captain, do you think the galaxy truly understands us yet?" Reyes shook his head slowly. "Not yet. Some will fear us, some will admire us, some will doubt. But they will all remember. When the galaxy cries for aid, we answer. Not because we must, but because we can. That is humanity's legacy, and it will burn brighter than any empire's shadow." Across the coalition worlds, a new understanding began to take root. Humans were no longer strangers. They were teachers of courage, exemplars of endurance, and living proof that even the smallest forces could defy the greatest threats. Every victory was not just tactical, it was symbolic. Humanity had proven that the galaxy's mightiest powers could be challenged not only by strength, but by will, courage, and refusal to surrender. The Kreth had expected obedience, submission, and fear. They had received defiance, and that defiance would echo across the stars for generations. The galaxy had begged for aid, it had received humanity, and in doing so, it had found a new hope, a new fire, and a new legacy that would never be forgotten.